The blood on his knuckles hadn't dried when he heard his daughter's trembling voice echoing in his mind, "Daddy, please help her." Those 4 words had sliced straight through the quiet, peaceful night and wrenched him back into the world he thought he'd left behind. Former Navy SEAL Ethan Cole had spent years fighting overseas, facing dangers most people would only ever see on a screen, yet nothing compared to the terror he felt when Mia's voice cracked with fear. He had promised himself that civilian life would be calm, ordinary, and predictable. But fate never asked for permission before reopening old wounds, and last night proved that a soldier might retire, but danger never fully does. The street had been quiet, the winter air heavy with the scent of pine, frost, and holiday lights flickering on almost every porch of the small coastal town. Ethan had been helping Mia with her school project, a simple night he hoped would erase some of the loneliness that had crept into her life after her mother passed. Everything changed when Mia's best friend, Lily, a shy, gentle girl who lived across the street, had run barefoot and crying into their yard. She had tried to speak through her sobs, but her words tangled painfully until Mia held her tightly and called for her dad. Ethan felt something shift in the air, something dark and threatening, and when he saw the bruises blooming across Lily's arms, the soldier inside him rose before he could think. He had run outside and found 3 grown men cornering Lily's older brother near the sidewalk, shoving him, yelling in low, cruel voices. Something about the situation felt wrong, too coordinated, too aggressive for a simple neighborhood dispute. They were armed, or at least 2 of them were, and the moment they noticed Ethan approaching, their eyes changed with an unsettling recognition. It was the look of men who had come prepared, men who were confident, men who didn't expect resistance. But what they hadn't expected was a retired SEAL, a man who had spent his life mastering the art of protecting others. They moved first, fast, but Ethan moved faster. Within seconds, the street erupted into chaos. He fought with precision, skill, and a silent fury fueled by instinct and fatherhood. It was over quickly, brutally, and efficiently. 3 attackers down, injured, disarmed, and gasping for breath on the cold pavement. The police arrived, the children were shaken but safe, and the night ended with promises that everything would be okay. But as Ethan tucked Mia into bed hours later, he couldn't shake one chilling thought: those men weren't random criminals. They knew what they were doing. And they were looking for someone. Morning arrived with an eerie quietness. The sunrise painted the sky with calm colors Ethan didn't trust. He stood in his kitchen, hands wrapped around a mug of coffee he had barely touched, senses sharpened by a lifetime of training. Something felt off. It wasn't paranoia, it was the same instinct that had saved his team countless times. Mia was still asleep upstairs, curled beneath her blanket, safe for the moment. Lily was home with her mother, who had tearfully thanked Ethan before rushing her daughter inside. Everything should have returned to normal, but the memory of last night refused to fade. When the knock came, slow, heavy, deliberate, Ethan's shoulders tightened. Men like him knew the language of knocks. This one was authoritative. Not police. Not neighbor. Someone higher. Someone familiar. He opened the door and felt his breath stall. There, standing on his porch in full uniform, was Admiral Drake Collins, his former commanding officer, a man Ethan respected more than anyone. The last person he expected to see on a quiet winter morning. Admiral Collins didn't smile, didn't offer a warm greeting, didn't speak with the casual familiarity of old teammates reuniting. Instead, the Admiral's eyes scanned the street, the rooftops, and the corners of the neighborhood like a hawk assessing a threat. Only then did he meet Ethan's stare. The silence between them carried the weight of years, years of missions, losses, victories, and the unspoken bond shared by men who had bled on the same sand. Whatever brought the Admiral here wasn't personal. It was serious. Ethan let him inside, and together they walked to the living room, the tension following them like a shadow. Only when the door closed behind them did Admiral Collins begin to explain. The men Ethan had taken down weren't random criminals, they were connected to an investigation, one involving covert operations and an international trafficking network the Navy had been monitoring for months. The Admiral had been briefed early that morning about the arrest report, and the moment he recognized the address and Ethan's name, he came in person. Not because protocol required it, but because he knew exactly what this meant. The attackers had not been after Lily or her brother specifically. They were looking for something, or someone, connected to someone in the neighborhood. And their appearance here wasn't coincidence. It was strategy. Their presence was a sign that the network had expanded, crossing borders and targeting new areas. And because Ethan had intervened with lethal precision, the men had reported something that made their superiors take notice. They had encountered a highly trained operative, one whose combat style and efficiency matched that of a SEAL. The Admiral's message was clear: Ethan's quiet civilian life had been breached. The enemy knew there was someone dangerous nearby. And once criminals learned the identity of a threat, they rarely left it alone. Ethan's past, which he had buried for Mia's sake, had resurfaced without his consent. And now his daughter was in the orbit of danger he had sworn to keep her from. The following days became a blur of tension, vigilance, and unwanted memories. Ethan found himself scanning every passing car, every unfamiliar face, every late-night sound outside his house. Mia felt the change, sensing her father's protective walls rising again. She had always admired his strength, but she also missed the softness he brought into their home when he wasn't haunted by shadows. He tried his best to shield her from worry, but children often understand more than adults expect. The Admiral returned multiple times, providing updates, intelligence reports, and warnings that the situation was escalating. The captured attackers were refusing to talk, and the network was shifting its methods. Ethan's involvement made him a variable, a wild card the criminals wanted to either recruit, eliminate, or retaliate against. The Admiral urged him to consider rejoining the Navy temporarily for protection and strategic advantage, but Ethan resisted. Mia needed him. He was tired of war. He wanted peace. But peace rarely stays where danger lingers. Things took a darker turn when Ethan discovered footprints outside his backyard gate one frosty morning. They weren't from any neighbor or delivery person. They were deliberate, spaced evenly, made by someone trained. The knowledge that someone had been watching his home while he slept ignited an old fire inside him. He realized that waiting for danger to come to his doorstep was no longer an option. A soldier's greatest tool was preparation, and if there was one thing he couldn't allow, it was letting Mia become collateral damage. He contacted the Admiral, who arrived within hours with new intel. The criminals had traced Ethan back to his old unit, confirming that he was a retired SEAL with a record of accomplishments that made him both a threat and a target. They believed Ethan had something they wanted: a piece of information from an old mission, a classified detail, or a connection that could expose their entire network. They were wrong. Ethan had nothing. But criminals didn't need truth to justify violence. The next days became a silent war. Drones circled the neighborhood under the guise of routine inspections. Unmarked vehicles appeared on the edges of town. Ethan, alongside the Admiral, began piecing together the motives behind the attackers. Lily's family, it turned out, had unknowingly rented a storage unit previously used by the network to move shipments. The criminals believed something had been left behind, something valuable, and the children may have seen something during an innocent play session. Their presence near the unit had caused suspicion. The attackers had attempted to silence potential witnesses. For Ethan, the realization was devastating. The threat had never truly been about him, but because he intervened, everything spiraled into a deeper conflict. Still, he didn't regret stepping in. Protecting innocent lives was a reflex woven into his soul. But now, more than ever, he had to ensure this ended before anyone else got hurt, especially his daughter. The Admiral proposed a plan: lure out the network members, gather decisive evidence, and end the threat permanently. Ethan hesitated, torn between the safety of his daughter and the duty he had sworn to uphold years ago. Mia sensed his turmoil and, in her innocent way, reminded him why he fought so fiercely in the first place. She told him she wasn't afraid